Celeste is an indie video game that was released on January 25th, 2018 and was received with universal acclaim. It was developed by Maddie Thorson and Noel Berry. Back in August 2015, the two of them had another game called Celeste, also known as Celeste Classic, that was made on the Pico 8 game engine. It's a very small and simple platformer game with two controls, jumping and dashing. A dash allows you to get a burst of speed in any of the 8 cardinal directions. You can't use another one until you land on the ground. Later on, the two of them would greatly expand their idea of Celeste and make it a full-fledged title. This game is pretty similar to its predecessor. On the surface, it's again a simple game, but with 3 controls. From the very start, you learn about jumping, dashing, and a new control, climbing. However, underneath it is a layer of complexity within the movement. In later levels, you'll learn more advanced techniques like wall bouncing, hyper dashing, and wave dashing. Even though you learn these techniques later in the game, you were able to do them from the very start. This opens up several different ways of doing a room, allowing for creativity. But then, the Celeste community discovered even more complex pieces of movement like spike jumping and ultra dashes, which aren't mentioned in the game. With just 2 of these simple controls, there is so much you're able to do. The level design is very intuitive when it comes to adding different gameplay elements that are directly connected to the controls. Some examples include using momentum to gain more distance and gaining an extra dash. This keeps the gameplay fresh and fun to master. Now, Celeste is a difficult game. Like, very difficult. But the difficulty of the game is tied into the story. Our protagonist Madeline climbs up Celeste Mountain. Noel Berry states that the setting was chosen when he googled British Columbian mountains and with the team deciding on Celeste Mountain because they liked the name. Madeline faces many different challenges as she scales the mountain, like cleaning up an abandoned hotel and going against harsh winds. But the most difficult challenge of all is her dealing with her mental health issues. Throughout her trek, she confronts a darker version of herself, also known as Badeline from the fans. Badeline is a representation of Madeline's fears and insecurities. She constantly tries to stop Madeline from climbing the mountain. Madeline tries to brush her off, but can't. In the end, she figures out that she needs to confront and eventually reconcile with her. Badeline is a part of her and makes up a small portion of who she is. She needed to embrace her insecurities and tackle her challenges head-on. The story of how Madeline deals with her mental health issues is based on how Maddie Thorson faced anxiety themselves. They tried to escape from their anxiety, but it made things worse. Maddie reflects on their experiences, and the chapter that focuses the most on it is the penultimate chapter of the main game, fittingly called Reflection. The primary theme of the story is growth. As Madeline begins to accept Badeline, she grows as a character. The final main level is quite symbolic because at the start, Madeline is at the very bottom. But as the meters keep growing in numbers, she starts to grow herself. Another person that grows is actually the player. As the player is constantly overcoming adversity through these difficult levels, the player's skills grow and so does their knowledge about the game. There is no character upgrading in this game aside from the final level. It's all down to the player's skill. Although this game is very, very challenging, anyone can beat it with enough practice. It's just up to the player with how they utilize the moveset. The soundtrack is really special. There's a certain je ne sais quoi to it. Composer Lena Raine made the score fit the atmosphere and how Madeline is feeling at any given point in the story. It was praised heavily and rightfully so. The devs are extremely welcoming and helpful to the community they have, especially the speedrunning scene. In Chapter 3, there's a trick called a demo dash where you could do a crouch jump with Madeline and go through certain obstacles. Her crouch is just small enough to fit through some hitboxes. As the devs took note of this exploit, they didn't patch it out and actually made a room in the level Farewell based on demo dashes. There's also several Easter eggs for those who dig deeper into the game. This just shows how much the creators care about their community. During the Game Awards 2018, it was nominated in 4 different categories. It won Best Independent Game and Game for Impact.
All right, and now the Best Independent Game goes to have to do this alone. It's hard. Whoop. The award goes to Celeste.
Celeste is a very special game. It was made by a group of dedicated people who wanted to make something that deeply connected to the player. Even though the game is brutally difficult, the people behind it believe you can do this.